This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We are internet friends turned real-life friends who both experienced the tragic loss of our sons to sudden infant death syndrome in winter of 2021.
In the year after Aiden died, my husband and I both became unemployed. My parents divorced, and we had to move 5 times for various reasons.
And as for me, just a few weeks before my son Quinn died, my then husband had come out to me as a transgender woman and were subsequently divorcing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But as long as we're living, we will love our sons deeply and work to make sure that we live a life that makes them proud.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Ready to get started? Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm obsessed with you.
I'm obsessed with you too. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast. As you're reading this, you're not reading anything. As you're listening to me, this episode is going to be coming out July 17th. So this is after my and Tyler's wedding, and this is our continuation of our interview. I guess now is as good a time as any to reveal that this past Saturday, July 15th, was actually just a wedding and not the marriage. We actually eloped back in May.
May 5th.
May 5th. Cinco de marriage. Which was a blast. So you've actually been my husband and Quinn's stepdad for 2 months already at this point.
Uh-huh.
How's it feel?
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. So as I said, this is part 2 of our interview with Tyler. So if you haven't listened to part 1, you definitely should. It explains how we met. It talks about the first time he met Judith. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. And this one is going to just be kind of more questions around what it looks like to support me overall. And I'm excited. I'm excited for this part too. So Tyler and I actually recorded this back in March. Tried to. The interview itself was fantastic, but the problem was that we were each wearing one headphone, and it turned out that I wasn't using the right microphone. So the microphone was Tyler's right earbud. So my voice is a little bit clearer than Tyler's voice. And anytime he turns his head, it's like, I mean, it is so bad. And you guys know that I sometimes talk about audio quality and sometimes it's better or worse. Like this was just egregious and almost unlistenable. So we're re-recording it again. What's kind of funny is the very first recording, the one you guys heard last week, Tyler was my boyfriend. The second time we recorded, Tyler was my fiance, and now Tyler's my husband. So you've really gone through the whole relationship process here on As Long As I'm Living podcast. But anyway, here we go. Let's launch into part 2 of our interview with Tyler, Alina's husband, and Quinn's stepdad. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be a mix of questions from me and questions from listeners. So question 1. So Tyler, you have seen me on a lot of hard days. You've seen me on a couple of Mother's Days. You've seen me on a couple of death anniversaries. You've seen me on one Quinn's birthday, right? Just one. Yeah. What do the hard days look like? And let me also just say, like, sometimes the hard days are not the like big days. Sometimes it's just a random Tuesday. Have do those days look like? What do I look like from the outside? What do they look like as an outsider looking in? And especially like, how have you evolved and what you like? Does it look different to you now than it did before? I'll shut up and let you answer.
You're right. It's not just the normal hard days that can be hard days. It can range the gambit. You could either be withdrawn and kind of just taking your own time in bed or something, or you could be on the floor in many different locations of the apartment. The hardest ones are, when you're having a really hard time and it turns into kind of like, well, for me, it's like, there's absolutely nothing I can do to help console you. Those are the worst ones for me.
Yeah.
I can usually help a little bit by making you comfortable somewhere on the couch or in bed or bringing you a blanket or pillow, but the hardest times are when like not even that helps and the worst ones are when it turns into wailing, which is the only way I can describe it, and it's just like you're grieving, and I mean it's just so hard for me to hear too.
Yeah,
Um,
I think a good example to share is Mother's Day of this year, where we went out in the morning and we're having a pretty good day. And then on the drive home, you want to tell that story?
yeah, where were we going?
We were at Brimfield. We went to a flea
It
market.
was Broomfield, yeah. Um, yeah, we had gone out to a big flea market, had a great time, and you had gotten like emotional once or twice throughout, but like again, it was like yeah, you had a moment, you know, moved through it, and then on the way home, we were still having a good time, and then kind of out of nowhere,
Yeah.
you just kind of like broke down in the passenger seat, just crying, wailing, and I mean, I was driving, so I just,
Yeah, I think that wailing is like, I know exactly what sound that I make that you're talking about. Um, and like the only way I can describe it is it's like it actually is like pain coming out of my voice. Like that is like I'm like it's like I'm throwing up, like vomiting pain out of my body through screaming is what it is. I mean, it's crying, screaming. It's
yeah,
not good.
the other one I can remember semi recently was you were having a really bad day and you went to throw ice in the bathtub, which is
Mm.
a great tactic, we must say. Um, and you told me you had only intended to go in there and just throw ice to, get some emotions out. And then you just ended up like in there just again wailing, and I came to check on you and there was just nothing I could do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are the worst ones. So like I guess the other end of that is again like you just, get down at times as anyone does, but like might happen more often.
While we're on this topic, how do you balance being a caregiver for me and taking care of yourself? And have you ever felt like maybe this was too much?
I think that's like for me probably one of the hardest things.
Hmm.
Um, is I mean, we even talked about this really early on in dating is like I want to be a fixer. I want to help. I always want to take care of you and, make you feel better, but, you know, this trauma is been a learning experience for me in that way for myself, and that like I can't fix this. No one can fix this. This is not a fixable thing, and it's just more doing what I can to take care of you in the best way that I can. Even if it's like 1% or 2% better. Um, even you have said like you didn't even know that it could be 1% or 2% better, but
Hmm.
I'm glad I can help with that.
Yeah, and
But for
like 1% or 2% sounds like nothing, but it is something, and it does help. It does help.
Yeah, but for taking care of myself, I mean that's again one of the hardest parts for me because I do put my self aside to take care of you, and then sometimes I do realize like, oh, I'm also now anxious and panicky because I
Hmm.
am too worried about you, and then that, you know, anxiety, panic that you're feeling creeps into me, and um, I've said this before. I said this early on was like there's a gravity about you and all of this, and it can't not affect people around you,
Yeah.
both for the good and bad. Um, and so yeah, it's for me recognizing when I do want to take care of you, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna put Alina to bed or, you know, draw a bath for her, and then I'm gonna, you know, go check out. Like I have tried my best to take care of
Mhm.
Alina, but now I need to take care of myself too.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do.
Um, some listener questions relating to this. What does it feel like to know you're a major support for me? Do you ever feel emotionally unsupported? And do you let me take care of you as well?
No, I mean, I love that you trust me enough to be a major support system. Um, I obviously love taking care of you and helping in any way I can, so I love that part. Do I ever feel emotionally unsupported? I think like the answer is technically yes, but only because, in your worst moments, you can't take care of me when I'm
Right.
then also, to the previous question, like feeling big emotions. And it's like, oh, nope, I'm on my own. But it's just like, no, I mean, there's no way around.
Yeah.
Um, but then you are so, so good at taking care of me as
And
well.
whatever else you have going on when I'm not actively in the throes of a grief attack.
Yeah, I mean, if I have my own stuff going on, you are always there for me in more, I think, than anyone has ever been in my life. So good thing I married you. Um, and I mean, even after you might have been having, a grief, what do we call them? Grief attacks? What do we call them?
Yeah, that's a good term for it.
Panic attack, grief attack. Um, like you still check in with me after those too. So it's
Mhm.
just like, hey, I know that was a lot. Are you okay? And then I'll say like, yeah, it was a lot, but like, I'm doing okay. Or like, hey, I need, some time.
We do a lot of debriefing.
Yes,
That's
we
like a
love
thing we do in our relationship a lot is we'll like have a big thing that happens or a big conversation and then like a couple hours or a day later we'll check in and be like, how was that for you? Like anything
shocking how
unresolved that you want to talk about or blah blah blah. How can I help
shocking
you
how
move on from
communication. People always say communication is key, and it's like, wow, it is.
it? Yeah, and I think to your point about those times where I'm unable to literally do anything except survive the next 60 seconds, I think that doing that debrief is key because I'm hoping that allows you to feel like I'm still a part of your experience of that moment, even though at the actual experience of that moment, I was not with you at all.
That's
Not even a
exactly how
little
I feel.
bit.
I like debriefing with you.
Yeah, I like debriefing with you too. Okay, next question. What has surprised you about grief, like watching me grieve such a big loss, and how has your understanding of grief changed since you first met me?
Oh my God, so much.
Yep.
Um, what were the two? Oh no, was it the one book? It's okay, you're not okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I picked that up because you were raving about it. I still haven't finished it.
You started that
Um,
book. We were dating for like 6 weeks, and you were like, "Okay, like I'll get it," and you started reading it, which I thought was so cute.
yeah, I mean that book alone. I mean, even on truly, like anyone and everyone should read that book. But like, yeah, that book explains everything, and then lived experience with you is, yeah, just everyone got grief wrong. Society got grief wrong. I don't even know how to answer this question because it's like seeing you and helping you in the ways that I can. Like it is just being there for someone, but it's also, I guess the biggest part is like acknowledging it, talking about it, uh, looking at it and like knowing that like, yeah, it's shitty, but like you can't ignore it. You can't ignore feelings. And uh, that's all people do with grief, it seems, in this society is like acknowledge it and then just be like, yeah, we acknowledge it, never talk about it again. No, we already
Yeah.
talked about it. I'm not talking about that again. Like we
Yeah.
already acknowledged it. It's like, no, it's
Yeah.
always there. It's always persistent. Everyone will always have it, whatever the grief that you're going through.
I
I feel like
think,
there could be a whole freaking episode on that question.
yeah, yeah. You're right. That could be an episode. We'll make a note of that. What did society get wrong about grief? Stay tuned for a Slow Annoying podcast.
Everything.
Um, yeah, I think let me put it this way. I think if you, Tyler, were not someone who was comfortable with witnessing real, actual, true grief, I don't think we would be married. I don't think we would be together. I think
Yes.
the grief of losing my son is such a huge part of who I am. And I hate that. I wish that weren't true, but it is. That if we didn't talk about it, or if we didn't acknowledge it, or if it wasn't allowed to take up space in our home, like, I don't think we could be together. I really don't.
No, I I think from who you are, I mean, look, you started a podcast about it so clearly. Like, I mean, I think that goes back to the same question. Like, society got it wrong. I think this happens to unfortunately more people than people know. Maybe not even this big a grief or other things like this, like a spouse dying or something. And
Mhm.
again, people in the next relationship or in the family, whatever, just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Or even like a
And
sibling or a parent or a friend dying.
yeah,
Like, these things affect us, and they don't just die and then you're done. Like, they're gone from the rest of your life. And it's perfectly normal for that to still feel sad for the rest of your life because they're not there. I think
yeah. I mean,
what makes
it was,
the child loss particularly egregious is that they are supposed to outlive you by
yeah,
everyone's estimation, right? So, like, losing a parent or a spouse or a sibling or a friend, like, eventually one of you was going to die and that was going to happen, right? In the parent-child relationship, it's just completely fucked up and wrong. That's never supposed to happen. So, like, it's bad in that particular way. But any of these things, like, they're gone from memories that they should have been there for, and it's just sad. It's sad,
yeah.
and it's
It's
normal to be sad.
actually Judith very recently found a poem
Yeah,
that I thought was explained this perfectly, where it's like,
yeah.
yeah, you guys even posted about it, but it was like, you don't die just once. It's like you die,
Mhm.
when
Over and over
I'm look
again.
over and over again, when I'm looking at your favorite meal, when I'm walking down the path we walked down, like all these
Yep.
things. It's like, yeah, I thought that poem was a really good explanation of that.
Well, I'll link that post in the description. Next is a question that I did not ask you before because this one came in just yesterday when I posted on Instagram. And I actually love this question and think it is so interesting. Okay. How has the global Quinn dying, me being a bereaved parent, all of this influenced conversations between the two of us about fertility and parenting? And I think
Whoa.
this is such a good question because it absolutely has. And there are, like, I'm excited to answer this question with you because I think there's so many ways that it has. First and
Yeah.
foremost, we've shared this on the podcast, but Quinn's death was most likely, somewhat likely, attributable to a gene he inherited from me. And so Tyler and I have decided to pursue IVF with genetic testing, to PGTM single gene testing to eliminate embryos that have this gene going forward. So the most obvious way that this has affected conversations about fertility is that we're doing IVF and we're doing that within the next month. So the egg retrieval within the next month. So that's a huge way that it has affected us. Also, pretty straightforward way to explain we're doing IVF, right? That's like a huge difference than trying to get pregnant the old fashioned way. What else?
I mean, yeah, just on that one, like, yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I guess as a guy, like, I never thought about those kind of things probably as much, but like, yeah, I never, I guess, really thought I was gonna do IVF, and I was never against it or anything, but now it's just like, oh yeah, that. And honestly, I'll say, like, again, privileged to know or be able to do all that, but like, even though we're trying to single out that one gene, you also get all these other protections kind of with
Mm-hmm.
IVF of screening out all these other things. Like, we learned that you were a carrier of some recessive gene that might cause deafness, and
Mm-hmm.
I was a recessive carrier of some other thing,
Yep.
but we know, those won't happen because we both don't have it. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just like it actually made me feel so much more confident and safe about having a kid because I was worried about a lot of those things that IVF screens out for.
Yeah. And what about also, like, can I ask you how you feel about, because I know doing IVF, screening out this gene is going to give me some peace of mind about my baby dying again. how does that feel for you? And let me also just like call back to our first date. I remember one of the things I said was, I have a son. He died of SIDS. And I said, it's random. I was like, there's really not a link. I was like, I don't have like a whatever. Like I really was specific on our first date that I'm not like damaged goods with like bad genes. Right. And then of course it turns out that I am. But so it is going to provide me peace of mind that gene is gone. How do you feel about that?
I mean, yeah, it's honestly, I would actually say like I have almost even more peace of mind for two reasons. Because A, like, yeah, we know about that and we're screening out for that, which like I feel like you've asked me so many times, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so happy to do this because like, yeah, we don't scientifically know 100% that this was the reason, but like it's not worth it. It's
Yeah.
not worth the headache. And then you keep saying that over and over of like, for your peace of mind to do this. And like, I want you to have that as my wife. I want you to have that peace of
Yeah.
mind. Like, let alone, not even for me, like, but like, and yes, it also gives me peace of mind, but I want you to have that peace of mind.
Yeah. I have said to you a couple times, I mean, I'm so excited to have kids with you when the time comes, but I have said a couple times that I'm not looking forward to when we have a child together is there's going to be a moment when you hold our baby that you realize what I actually lost. Oh my God, I'm feeling really emotional. When you're going to feel like how much love I feel for Quinn, and you're going to look at our baby and you're going to think, oh my God, like I could only have 3 months and 27 days with this person and then they could die. And I'm not looking forward to that for you, because I think as bad as it's been watching me grieve, I think you're also able to be a little bit separated from it because you don't have the experience of having a child. Um, but I think it's only natural that when we have a living child, you're gonna have more anxiety than the average new dad. First of all, just because you're an anxious person in general, which I actually love
What?
about
No.
you. But just because of my experience, and you're going to be parenting a newborn with someone whose newborn died. Um, and so I think that
Yeah.
we've talked about that a lot. I think that's going to be hard. I think we're going to have to lean on our network or support system in those early days to like actually make sure we sleep, because I think that's going to be really hard. We'll see. I mean, maybe it won't be as hard as I'm expecting, but I think it's not going to be easy. Um, and I guess what I'm trying to get at is I have a feeling that Quinn's death is going to affect the way you parent a newborn as well, even though you weren't
Yeah,
there.
I think that's true. And I mean, I think this is just like, the way life works, the way humans are. But like, you're right. I know you're right, is that when we have a living kid and I get to hold them, and there will be something that's like, oh my God, I will have more realization or recognition of what you lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say for the moment though, is like, yeah, like I'm going down so many paths in my head right now, but I'm like, is this just like a human protection, biological protection? Is like, I don't feel that right now because I have not experienced that. And it's like an ignorance is bliss thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I have that a little at the moment. And I know you're right,
Yeah.
is when we have a living kid, it will be something will be there.
Yeah. Um, and then I think when we talk about like parenting older children, I think this is also something that we talk about. I don't think your parenting, I mean, we'll see, but I don't think your parenting of older children is going to be affected by this. I do think it's possible mine will be. I mean, we've talked a lot about this, right? Like, I don't want to be a parent who is so fixated on their child not dying that they don't let their child live. Um, and so we've talked about like, I'm going to be looking to you, like, how intense do I need to be about boat safety? And like, can we let our children like go to the mall by themselves? Like all of these things that are like just like normal things that like I have an idea in my head of what feels comfortable, but I can tell that when my kid is 13 and like they're going out by themselves, like I think it's going to feel so much, I'm just so acutely aware they could die, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, anyway, I'm going to be looking to you to keep me honest about letting them
Yeah.
live.
We have talked about that a lot, and I think it's true. And I mean, I'm glad we're having the conversations now. But like, yeah, I think it is going to be, and we're good at this, but I think it is me going to be, hey, Alina,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta let them go to the mall.
That was a bad example because there definitely will not be malls when our kids are old
Oh,
enough
so
to go to
that's
the mall.
true. For those younger listeners, malls are.
It's like if Amazon were a physical place. Okay, so that was a great question. Thank you to who asked it. I love that question. Okay. Do you wonder who the old Alina is or grieve not knowing her? And what do you like about the new Alina?
um, yeah, obviously this changed you in ways, but like I feel like you've worried about this more, way more than
Yeah.
I have, because I feel like, and I mean, you're right, this has changed you and you do act in different ways and whatnot, but like I said this really early on too, is like I feel like I was able to see you as, or at least break apart those parts of you that was the grieving Alina,
Hmm.
the mom Alina, and then just who you were, who Alina is. Alina is a very fun, very goofy, very smart, pretty, and she gets to like she does bits with me. She does little goofy bits with me. She's so down to jump in the car and drive up Route 1 with me for my birthday. And all these little things that make you you, that aren't connected to Quinn or you being a mom or those things. And it's like, obviously those things are also a part of, Quinn and you being a mom are a part of who you are now, but like you are still you as well. Now I'm making my wife cry.
It's a good cry. I
Yeah.
think if I think that you are the only person I feel like actually, and Judith also, because I met you after the loss. I feel like the two of you are able to see me a lot more clearly. Me, the actual like human being, um, a lot more clearly than a lot of other people in my life because I think, of course, everyone who knew me before knew a version of me, and then they watched a lot of that fall away, and then now they're getting to know a new version of me, but they're trying to reconcile two different versions of me, and even I struggle with what was actually me and what was my personality before was due to other things and like whatever. They're trying to reconcile two different versions of me at the same time. Whereas I feel like you, Tyler, and Judith both only see exactly what's in front of you, and you don't have this frame of reference of
Yeah,
this
we're not
other
we're
person.
not we're not comparing you to the
Right.
old Alina and all that. And actually, honestly, you
And
and I have talked
even
about this a
I
little.
even I compare me to the old me, and it's so nice to have you sitting right in front of me seeing being like, yes, but the person you are right now is fantastic. So like I know you're not the
Yeah,
same as before, but that's okay because this person's great.
yeah, I love this person. I married this person. Um, so like you and I talk about 4 and 14s a lot, and I actually do think like this falls into this as well, where like even for myself of like friends I knew when I was, 18, 20 or growing up, and I think this happens to
Yeah.
everyone in different means, is like, yeah, your family knew you as a kid, as an infant and growing up, and so like they have these preconceived notions of you. as one does. Like they knew you for that long. And then, this thing, life changes you. Again, 4 and 14, this changed you very hard and very quickly. But all those people that knew you before still have those preconceived notions, whether that's good or bad.
Mhm.
But yeah, I see you for who you are now, and I like you.
Somebody asked, I'll just say, it was Jill. You know Jill. Hadley's mom asked, how'd you get so lucky to find Alina? Which I thought was such a cute question.
Yeah.
I think like if we can take a pause for a second, like, well, not a pause on the recording, but a pause on the deep questions. I think it would be cute, or I think it would be funny to answer like, what are some just like things about me that podcast listeners might not know? You kind of just talked about like a little bit of who I am, but I thought it'd be funny to do like if though we're just a couple who's interviewing each other. What's like a pet peeve you have about me? Let's keep it short. What's a pet peeve you have about me? And then also what is like just a thing you love about me that's completely unrelated to me having a dead kid? Yeah, pet Steve. That's what we call when we like a pet peeve. It's like the opposite of a pet peeve is a pet Steve. And then a pet Jeeve is when you have a question, just like a pressing question, like ask Jeeves. Anyway.
You better include those because that's what I love about you is that you do these we make up all these fucking weird
We made up
definitions as a
pet
couple.
Steve and pet Jeeve like a year ago. We still
Yeah.
call them that. Anyway, so if you could give a pet peeve and a pet Steve about me, that would be great.
A pet peeve about you is.
And I'm going to share one about you too.
Ah, damn it. A pet peeve is such a minor one. You're so fucking bad at filling the dishwasher. Oh my God. It's so bad. You're so atrocious at, oh my God.
You know those
Can't
memes
you
where
just
it's like one person loads the dishwasher like a Swiss Army
like
whatever, and one person
an
loads it like a
architect?
raccoon on meth, and I'm the raccoon on meth. I'm like, it'll get clean. It'll get clean enough. Just toss it in there. And Taylor's like measuring to make sure the plates are the same distance apart. Okay, fine. I'll accept it, but that's not a very good answer.
All right, whatever.
And a pet Steve.
Pet Steve is that you take care of me. You take care of me so well. You also notice when I'm in funks, and you will go out of your way to take care of me as well.
That's cute. So my pet peeve about Tyler is he loves to have all his little things out and about, visible. He would love to have like cottagecore is like that's like one of your like vibes. Like he would love to have like canisters on every shelf, like the appliances like all lined up on the counter. And I'm very much someone who likes like everything to have a place that's like not visible, like tucked away. And we are very incompatible in that way.
That is
Tyler
very
likes
true.
to have all his little things out and about so that he can see
How
them
am I
and
supposed
admire
to
them.
remember all my little things if they're not out and I can't see them? What if the canister's hidden and I don't even remember I have that canister? Come on.
And then a pet Steve, something I love about Tyler is he's so introspective. I think I was really afraid. I mean, as a straight woman on Earth, as a feminist straight woman on planet Earth, it has always felt unfair to me that my partners were gonna always be men because men are listen, there are a lot of men I love, but they're not known for their introspection and emotional intelligence. But Tyler is particularly emotionally intelligent and introspective, and loves to talk about my feelings and his feelings, and is so down to like get into the deep stuff of life with me. And I love that about you. And I love that you hate sports. Next question. Do your friends or family worry that Alina is someone with baggage?
I mean, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, yeah, I think they do. But like from anyone who's met you, like they know you are taking care of yourself. And like, I am there to take care of you too. And like, no, I don't think any of my friends would rightfully or anything say like, oh, this is too much for Tyler.
Yeah. Could you feel from the start that I was not normal and went through a big trauma? Can you feel the difference in dating Alina versus dating other people who were not bereaved mothers?
Yes. But I mean, I think the real demonstration of your grief was like our third or fourth or fifth date. We went out to a bar or something, and you were just not having a good night.
we
And
talk about that in last week's episode. So go back and listen
right.
to last week's episode if you want to hear all about that.
So yeah, you had the panic attack at a bar and everything. And I mean, yeah, that was not a normal fourth date. And, I sent you on your way. And I think that was really the first introduction of you showing the
Yeah.
grief that you had.
Yeah. So I guess the answer is yes, you can tell. That's the short answer.
Yeah. What was the second part of the question?
Can you feel the difference dating Alina versus other people who are not
Oh yeah,
bereaved
so that's the other
mothers?
thing I wanted to say though, is like, yes, but I guess like stupid silver linings is like you with the amount and intensity of emotions that you feel, um, you know, you as a straight feminist female have it bad because men suck, but from my perspective, from a straight white male's perspective, is
Because we
like
don't get enough of those in the media.
exactly right. If I could just input my straight white male opinion here, um, is that you helped me with all this. It's been so intense and everything that you have helped me to draw out my feelings and emotions and be able to talk about my stuff even more, um, in a safe and respectful way.
Yeah, I think I love that. I think it's like I'm paving the way. I'm like giving you an opening to show your feelings because they're not going to be as big as mine. So
I think,
it's like
yeah,
mine are like 14s, and that's letting you feel like maybe a 6 or a 7 or an 8 on a scale from 1 to 10 because it's obviously like it's just like it's opening up a door for you to feel your feelings with me, which
yeah,
I think has been really good for you and for us.
yeah. I think that's true.
Um, any advice for lost mums who feel insecure meeting new people?
This is for like dating, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but probably I don't think this person who asked this, I don't think this person is single and dating. I think they're just like trying to meet new people, like new
Oh,
friends and stuff.
I mean, look, meeting new friends past 30 is hard enough. Um, but like from meeting Alina and Judith, like I think again, actually it's very similar to the answer of the last question, is like those people who will accept you were going to accept you regardless of whether this happened or not. And as Alina just said, like the openness that you can do, obviously maybe don't start with it all in date number one or meeting number one, but I think it does open the doors of being more intimate with people, whether that's romantically or not. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you just said like it opens the doors for people to share emotions, and that's how you build friendships and bonds and all that. So
Yeah, I completely
I
agree with
think,
that. And my advice, even though you didn't ask for my advice, is I think there's obviously a delicate balance between sharing too much and not sharing enough. But I think I have come to realize with time what feels comfortable for me to share, and that does come with time. Is like you test the waters, you feel like you said too much one time, so the next time you back off. And I think I always err on the side of just sharing up front what has happened to me. And like that's the way I approached it when I was dating. And people who you want to be around, people who you are going to want to have friendships or relationships with, are not going to be scared off by that. Like Tyler talked a lot in the last episode of last week about baby loss, trauma, all of this is not, I mean, it's definitely a part of who I am, but it's not who I am. It's just something that happened to me. And like,
Yes.
people who judge you based on what happened to you and not who you are not people that you want to be around. And that's the truth of it. I really believe that. So, yeah, that's my advice. I do think, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that it opens doors for more quantity of relationships. I don't think that's true, but I agree with Tyler that it does open the door for higher quality relationships.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
Okay. Um,
I think this has actually been one of the hardest things for me lately. When you say you hate your life, like it hurts.
yeah,
Um, because it's kind of like, how can I not take that a little personally when like we
yeah,
are building a very joyful and everything life. And it's been one of the hardest things. And I don't think I have an answer at the moment, but I know that, us building a very happy life together is amazing and I love it. I think it is actually, I think you said earlier in this episode, it's like making room for that grief. I mean, I actually, it's not even that, it's making room for Quinn, which,
yeah.
I'm going to do. I think it's this weird thing, and I don't mean this, I'm more spitballing here, but it's like recognizing Quinn, but also it just almost feels like the wrong words, but it's like also moving on. We're never going to forget Quinn. We're always going to, remember Quinn and do things for Quinn. Um, at the same time, it's like we are trying to build our life together too.
Yeah. I think what I strive to move on from is feeling like him dying is a huge gaping hole taking up my entire life. It will always be a huge hole, always. The way I have described it to my therapist and on ongoing and many sessions over the last couple of years. In the beginning, it felt like I had this home with a husband and a baby, and then all at once it just blew up, completely blew up in my face, exploded. And in the beginning, I was like picking through the debris of my old life, trying to find things that I wanted to keep. But really, a lot of that work in the beginning was like clearing the lot of the debris of this exploded old life. And it was like not fun work. Like I was cutting myself on glass and I was like, hurting my back lifting stuff. And now I feel like meeting you, I was starting to lay the foundation for a new house. And now I would say, I feel like we have like the walls up, we're still working on the layout inside, but like, I do feel like we're getting there. And then, at some point, I'd love to feel like I've built a house again. And in the backyard, we can have a little garden for Quinn. And like, yes, I'm talking metaphorically, but I also mean in real life. Like, I would like to have a garden for him at some point. But like, I want him to be a part of this new house and this new lot that we're building together, this new life. And I don't want to feel for, I guess to go back to what you were saying about when I say I hate my life, I think it's become really natural for me to be able to hold two completely conflicting things at the same time, which is that I hate my life and I actually do really like a lot of my life right now. And I'm able to hold those both at the same time, but I can see how not me and not in my brain would not be able to hold those two things at the same time. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's a really hard thing for me because I didn't go through those things. I didn't have my life blow up in that way. And I guess it's like it's almost like the bad side of me knowing just the you now. Um, it's like almost the bad side of that of, I didn't experience that personally and all that, so I, can't possibly know all that. But like, yeah, you lost a child, you lost a marriage, you lost, you sold your house that you had there and like all this stuff. And like, yeah, that is a huge, 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 huge loss. And I guess for me, it's like I've, built this life with you and I've heard all these things, but like I love my life. I love it so much. And I did not go through losing a child or losing a marriage or losing all these other things that go along with it. And so when you say, I hate my life, I understand it
Which, by the way,
completely.
is rare. It's on bad days that I do feel that. I'm just going to point that out. I don't regularly say that to you, but I do say that maybe once every 6 or 8 weeks. I feel that way.
Yeah. And it's really hard for me to hear.
Yeah.
But it's almost one of those things of like, like what do I even say to that? Because you're so objectively right to say that.
Justified. Yeah.
Justified, thank you, to say that. And at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but like, aren't we having a good time? Which we are.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like it's such a dual
Yeah.
thing.
It's
It's
holding
hard.
two things at once. It is hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I guess I'll say thank you for letting me say that in those moments without being like, but look at all the good stuff we have. Cause like, I know we have a lot of really good things. And like right now I'm in a good place and I really feel I don't hate my life right now. I love my life. I love my life with you. It's like it's in those moments where the grief overcomes me that it really feels like, wow, I can't do another day. I don't care
Yeah.
how good the last 60 days were. This day is bad and I cannot do another one. That is how it feels sometimes. So anyway, thank you for letting me feel those feelings, even though I know they're not the best to hear about. All right. How have I evolved in the last year? Someone wants to know.
Um, did we answer this
And let
last
me
episode?
actually say, we relatively recently in the last 3 or so months started talking about how we can look back at the early days of our relationship and recognize that I maybe wasn't ready. I think I was really
Yeah.
ready to date, but I really was not ready for a long-term serious relationship. And even actually at that time, I even said that to you. I was like, I'm not ready for a long-term serious relationship. And you were so patient with me. But we look back and we're like, yeah, I was not ready. The
There was
amount of
probably a few of these.
healing that I've done since I've known you is so significant.
Yes. Yeah, the amount of healing you've done since I've met you, I mean, it's staggering. It really is. Of
Mm-hmm.
like, it was like one of the first times I made you cry unintentionally was I was like, you look great, you look pretty, you look some, and
You complimented my body.
yeah, you just like immediately had an adverse reaction, which again, understandable, but for me at that time, I'm like, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah, I was feeling at the time that we started dating, I was feeling really uncomfortable in my body because I hadn't reconciled having a post. First of all, I had so much going on body wise. I had this postpartum body. I also had post breastfeeding boobs that I wasn't used to, and I had lost 25 pounds because of grief. So I was like skinny, culturally like hot, but like really hating the way I looked because I wanted to be 10 pounds heavier with a baby in my arms, or I just wanted to have like the reminders. I looked both enough like a postpartum mom and not enough like a postpartum mom that both were painful. So I
Yeah,
really had a lot of shit going on with my body. And that was not easy for me.
no,
But
and I
you've
mean like
helped
that,
me with that.
yeah, and but like that's only like that's just like one of the many examples from early on, like that, or it was like you would have way more bad days where you could
Hmm.
just couldn't get out of bed, were on the floor, way more. I mean, yeah, I mean we have talked about it a lot recently. Like it's healing. Like it's yes, it's good to remind that like no, this will always be there, and like it is something you and we will always have to deal with, but like you you and people who have gone through similar things, like there is healing. There is
Hmm.
healing. It does get better.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
it does get better in that it will be less often that you feel these feelings, these overwhelming feelings.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And you
I
were
think
a
in the last
witness to that in real time.
yeah, I mean, I think in the last episode I was saying like I sometimes like you just get in very griefy moods and like you'd be on the floor and like sometimes I'd lay down with you and other times I'm like, this has happened like 3 days in a row. I'm just gonna step over you today to go to the bathroom. Like I'm trying to take care of myself too, and it's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yes.
that does not happen nearly as much anymore.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, I can see how that would come off as callous, but that is real. Like, that's what you have to do. Like, Tyler has to take care of himself. It's like the whole oxygen mask thing. Like, he has to oxygen mask himself before he can oxygen mask me.
Yeah.
And when you live with someone day in and day out, like, you can't get swept up in every single one of their feelings. But I guess his point and your point is that it happens less frequently. And I would
Yeah.
say usually the bouts are shorter, the grief attacks are shorter. I have a lot of tools in my toolkit now, and I would say I think the amount of healing I've done, I think the amount of healing I've done since our relationship started is probably equivalent to the amount of healing I had done between his death and our relationship starting.
Yeah.
Like I think it's that significant of uh change in my
Yeah. No,
grief.
it's incredibly significant when I think back to how, again, just I think grief attacks is the right word. Like you had so many grief attacks, rightfully so. Um, and yeah, it's just less often
Hmm.
now.
And the other thing too is like you and I look back at pictures of early in our relationship and we're like, oh my God, I was so skinny. And I just
Yeah,
like
you
look
were
gray. Like I still
so
have a very griefy body and face.
yeah, it is. You were so it's you look at it and it's just immediately like, oh, that is not a healthy skinny.
No, that is not a well person. Like that's how in old pictures of us, I do not look well. I start to look happy, but I don't look well. And now I think I look both happy and well.
Yeah,
Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is Quinn, the baby, your
we
stepson.
we like Quinn.
We like him. Um, so these are all listener questions, which I think is so cute. Someone says, how have you developed a relationship with Quinn? Do you sometimes think about him or mention him too? And someone else asked, how do you honor a child you never met? And how do you navigate supporting Alina in grieving a person you never met?
Yeah, it's
So let's talk first about how do you navigate supporting me in grieving someone you never met, first of all.
um yeah, I mean I feel like that's kind of what this whole episode has been, but it's just I will support you in any way I can. And I mean,
Mhm.
honoring Quinn is a way of supporting you too.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I have only, I guess, answering all the questions, like I have only and can only know Quinn through Alina,
Mhm.
um, through the photos you show me, through the stories you tell me, and like I love hearing every single one of those. I actually said very, very early on is like I want to hear the fun stories of Quinn. I want to hear the cute little stories like that you got to have with Quinn. Um, and you've told me more and more and showed me more and more photos and videos, and like that's how I've got to know Quinn. Um, and like yeah, I feel like I have got my own little relationship in my head with Quinn too. Um, him and I can bond over how crazy his mom is sometimes. His urn is closer to my desk, and I really like lighting a candle for him.
Yeah, I'll come
Um,
home sometimes and you've lit a candle for him, like without me even there.
yeah. He's got to stay warm too. And yeah, I mean, it's not a normal relationship, I guess, but like
What's
I,
what I think is really interesting is I think from the outside, and when I say outside, I mean people who are not in my life. So either people who are listening to this who are not bereaved, or maybe people in your life who don't know me that well or didn't know Quinn. I think they are a little bit, I think people can get a little bit confused about the concept of you being his stepdad. Because it's like, how can you
yeah,
be the stepdad to someone who you've literally never met and they're dead before you even met his mom? But I know you take your role as Quinn's stepdad really seriously. Like one of my friends texted you Happy Father's Day this year and you
yeah,
teared up. Um,
yeah,
because being recognized in that way, I think felt really good. You, I mean, I don't know what a stepdad relationship looks like to a living kid, but you are the best possible stepdad I can imagine to my dead kid.
oh,
Um,
mhm.
in your willingness to hear the same stories about him over and over again, your willingness to have photos of him in our home, um, your willingness to involve him in special days like our wedding, talking about him, advocating for him in your family and, in our families. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it's I doing the best I can.
There's no blueprint for
Um,
this, and it's not even something you can Google. Like, there's not that
yeah,
many of you out there, step parents to dead kids. By the way, if you're a listener and you are a step parent to a dead kid, or you are married to someone who's a step parent to a dead kid, reach out to Tyler because you guys are a weird little club.
yeah, we'll start our own sad stepdad club.
Shout out to the Sad Dads
Uh,
Club.
shout out to the sad dads. Um, yeah, we're a subcommittee of the Sad Dads Club. Um, no, I mean it's I do. I mean I've obviously thought like, what if I came into this and Quinn, was still here and I was a stepdad to an alive child and everything, and it's like, I've always wanted to be a dad, and I can't wait to have my own living children too. Um, it's it's like, what do you do, and what do you do for a kid? It's I don't know. I think it's you put them first. Like what put your desires or whatever aside, and like, what does Quinn need in this moment? And sorry, Quinn, it's not much at the moment. But like, yeah, I like lighting a candle for him. I like remembering him. I like helping to carry
You
on his
use
memory.
you use his towel sometimes, his Quinn
I
towel.
love I love using his Quinn towel. I love the little Quinn stool. Um, yeah, I don't know, I like incorporating him into our lives. It's nice.
Like
I care about him.
I know that for the rest of my life, like let's say you and I have two kids, like I know I'm always going to say I have three kids, right? I have Quinn and then I have whatever number of our kids. And I really feel like you think of Quinn as part of our family, and that when we're 50 and our kids are in high school, people are going to say, how many kids do you have? And you're going to say, oh, we have the two kids. And then I also have a stepson who died before I met Alina. Like, he's very much a part of our family. He really
Yeah,
is.
of
He
course he
is.
is. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not even a question.
Yeah. If you're addressing mail to us, like, it should be to Tyler and Alina and Quinn because he's here. He lives here. So my last question to you is, when we have bereaved parents on this podcast, we typically ask them like for a memory that they want to share of their time with their baby. And Tyler, you never met Quinn, but is there a memory of Quinn that I have shared with you that really stands out in your mind, or that you think about, or yeah,
Yes,
that is meaningful to you?
there's at least two immediately that come to mind. Um, Quinn was a big reader, and he loved to read upside down books, and so like that photo of Quinn reading an upside down book. I don't know why. It's just like so ingrained in my mind, and it's so cute. Quinn was literally the cutest baby, but then like him reading an upside down book, of which his mom loves to read too.
Hmm.
And so like I love that one.
Yeah.
And then the other one is um you the sound you used to make, that he used to make, like a yeah. Oh no, I love that so much because I feel like that's like if I see a baby out in the wild, I feel like that's what I am like, I don't know, conditioned or like just intuitively do to a baby is like make weird noises at them or make weird faces at them. And like if Quinn was doing that, like I would totally just like be constantly making weird noises at him.
You're like, oh, he likes the sound. Let me do it 70 more times for
Oh,
him.
absolutely.
Yeah, he was a sweet boy. I wish you could have met him.
I wish that too. To all of Alina and Judith's new friends, they want to hear from you. Email them at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow them on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. They'll get back to you as soon as their grieving brains allow.
Yay!
Okay, I'm gonna do another take.
Okay.
I love you.
Me too.
To all of Alina and Judith's new friends, they want to hear from you. Email them at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow them on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. They'll get back to you as soon as their grieving brains allow.
Yay!
I think that was perfect.
You got it. That's the one.